Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to my lecture, 诗画中国，中国山水画史英文专题讲座 Lectures on the history of Chinese landscape painting. The first lecture, Paintings in the Sui and Tang dynasties. Before I start my first lecture, let me ask you a question. What is your impression on the traditional landscape painting? Anyone? It could be quite brief. It could be one sentence, even one word. Anyone?
It's abstract and delicate.
Abstract and delicate.
In my opinion, it's full of images, and the images conveys all the emotion of the painters.
Okay.
I think it's peaceful and complex.
Okay. Are there any more answers?
I think Chinese landscape paintings always leave a wide space for people to think about more things or the inner world of the painters.
The inner world of the painters.
Yes.
Thank you. Very good. Any others?
Well, I also think that the traditional Chinese painting focuses more on the atmosphere rather than how realistic the paintings are compared with some Western oil paintings.
Okay, thank you very much. If this is what we have, I'd like to share my own personal feelings about 山水画, the traditional Chinese landscape paintings, with you. First, let me share some paintings with you. The first one, the second one, and then the next one. Actually, before I started learning the professional knowledge about Chinese landscape painting, when I saw these paintings, sometimes I would think they looked similar to me. But anyhow, the masterworks will never fail to arouse the deep feelings from me. Just as with the traditional Chinese music, I will give you an example of 古琴 here. I feel my soul is trembling on these strings. As to me, every Chinese painting arouses poetic feelings in my heart. There are many scholars trying to find out the relationship between Chinese poems and Chinese paintings. And among them, one of the foremost authorities of Chinese art in the Western world, Professor James Cahill, who has just passed away. In his brilliant book, The Lyric Journey, he suggests the following: a mode of painting that at its best is technically superlative, deeply moving, and in the broad sense of the word, poetic. And he thought poetic painting as a popular mode of painting existed in the 11th to 13th centuries and the 15th to 16th centuries, as he suggested. But what I am going to discuss in my course is much wider than that definition, because to me, the spiritual line between Chinese poems and Chinese paintings cannot be limited to certain mode of painting that flourished in these two periods, but also has existed since the start of Chinese culture. So in my lectures, I'm going to guide you into the history of Chinese landscape painting from the Han Dynasty to the 21st century, using a special key, Chinese poems. And the choice of the guidance is mainly based on my personal understanding of the paintings, so you can have your own choices too. And yet I hope this will give you a special way to appreciate traditional Chinese paintings and correspondingly to enjoy the Chinese poems at the same time. And now let me first introduce the prehistory of landscape painting. The primitives of Chinese had already started to paint on the ground, the cave wall, and their weirs 7,000 years ago. And the traditional Chinese painting, 国画, involves essentially the same techniques as calligraphy and is done with a brush, have been gradually developed from that origin. So do you know the three main forms of traditional Chinese painting? Anyone? The three main forms. Yeah, so here. Bird and flower, yeah? And figure, 人物, and yes, 山水, landscape, some called mountain and water. And these are the three main forms. Yes, you know that. And then which one was developed first? Which one among the three was developed first? Guess? Yes, it should be figure painting. And figure painting or narrative painting, which takes figures as its most important subject. In these figure paintings, sometimes we can see the landscape in the background. So actually, the feature of landscape comes out first as the background of human activities and not as the main subject. Such a phenomenon happened all over the world. Here, like this fresco. This is a fresco taken from a Greek island, the ship in processing. And then you can see the detail. And another one is also a fresco wall painting based on Homer's Odyssey. So if we come back to the Chinese history, we have many text records to show that not later than Han Dynasty, there were landscape features in the wall paintings, in halls and palaces. Since almost all trace of paintings have disappeared, we can only see them in text records, like this excerpt from the poem 鲁灵光殿赋. I'll give you the Chinese form first, on the Lingguang Palace by Wang Yanshou. 忽缥缈以想象，若鬼神之仿佛。图画天地，品类群生，杂物奇怪，山神海灵。携载其状，托之丹青。千变万化，世各谬形。随色相类，取得其情。Upon the great walls, flickering in a dim semblance, glint and hover, the spirits of the dead. And here all heaven and earth is painted, all living things. After their tribes and all wild marines of salt with salt, strange spirits of the sea, gods of the hills, to all their thousand guises, had the painter formed. His reds and blues and all the wonders of life had he shaped truthfully and colored after their kinds. So can you imagine the kind of painting he saw in the Lingguang Palace? And what a pity we cannot see these paintings today, for they have disappeared with the palace. Anyhow, we can still see something that survived the time. Here, the paintings of the molded pottery tiles or stones from the tomb shrine. You can see the mountains behind the workers. This is the detail of the rubbing. These are the workers and the mountains. Yes. And then the next one I'm going to show you. Here, another one. Here. And I think we could feel a kind of rhythm in the actions of the animals and the people here. In the upper part, you could see the hunters here shooting the wild geese. And you can see there are 2 bare trees and the lake, there are lotus flowers and the wild geese, and the border of the lake winds back, seeming almost to lose itself in the mist. And this beautiful scenery painted reminds me of a poem. Here I would like to share with you. 白水满春塘，旅雁美迥翔。煞流千若藻，敛河带鱼霜。群浮动清浪，单泛烛孤光。旋飞尽不下，乱起未成行。唰与同摇漾，一举还故乡。Spring pools are filled with water white, migrating geese in homeward flight. When they pack food, crises bear, their wings cold with frost of last year. In flocks they swim and ripple stream, single, each chases lowly sunbeam. Hovering, down they will not go, rising pell-mell, they form no row. Together flapping wings, they fly until their homeland meets the eye. So here in the picture, the geese should fly fast enough, or they could never arrive home. Agree? The 2 tiles give us a proper example of how the landscape is presented as the background of human activities, or to describe the time and the space of human activities. After that, of these tiles in Han Dynasty, I'd like to say something about the origin of thought related with the coming of the landscape painting in China. In China, actually, meditation on time did not start until the Chinese sage Confucius gave out his famous saying by the river, 子在川上曰，逝者如斯夫，不舍昼夜. So the passage of time is just like the flow of water, which goes on day and night. Also in the same book, Confucius continued using comparison in 智者要水，仁者要山. The wise find pleasure in water. The virtuous find pleasure in hills. In such emphatic comment, we can see that over 2,000 years ago, the Chinese people not only had visualized the time and space and also matched natural landscape with certain human characteristics, but the real recognition of spiritual elements in Chinese landscape did not appear. And it appeared much later than Confucius' time. So, guess, when did it start? Think about literature. When did landscape literature, landscape poems start? In which dynasty? Wei Jing, yes. Wei Jing is the right answer. Wei Jing period. And in a broad sense, Wei Jing period include 三国, 两晋, 南北朝. Some Western scholars regard this period as the period of disunion. Here from 220 to 589. This is regarded as the 300 years between the collapse of Han Empire in the 3rd century and the reunification of the country under the Sui dynasty in the 6th century. It was an era of great suffering and great misery. The poem Hao Li Xing, written by Cao Cao, can give us a very vivid description of the time. 白骨露于野，千里无鸡鸣。 生命百宜一，念之断人肠。I feel the live bones of those who lost their lives. For miles and miles no cock is heard to crow. Among 100 people one survives. My heart would break on thinking of the vow. And then, when the Han Empire collapsed, Confucianism, which had been the dominant philosopher in the Han period, declined. Taoism and imported Buddhism, which were not as powerful as Confucianism, then captured the imagination of Chinese scholars and artists. Gradually, there came the metaphysics of Wei and Jin period, 魏晋玄学. It combined Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. Metaphysics in Wei Jin period had a far-reaching influence on Chinese classical aesthetics. Chinese scholars and artists, like the famous poet Tao Yuanming, who grew disillusioned with life at the court, chose to turn away from political engagement and then devote themselves to the appreciation of nature and the pursuit of artistic expression. We all know the poem, 采菊东篱下，悠然见南山。山气日夕佳，飞鸟相与还。此中有真意，欲辨已忘言。Then the English form, I pick fin-side asters at will. Carefree, I see the southern hill. The mountain air's fresh day and night. Together birds go home in flight. What revulsion at this view! Words fail me if I try to tell. So from this poem, we can see that landscape has already become an object for them to appreciate. This is regarded as the origin of thought for the Chinese landscape painting. And according to the records in that time, pure landscape paintings were already created in the Wei Jin period. Unfortunately, these paintings were mainly painted on walls or on silks. We know silk is very hard to preserve, so they have rarely survived. And we know the celebrated painter Gu Kaizhi had painted some landscape paintings. He even wrote an article about how to paint landscape, painting Yuntai Mountains. Unfortunately, all his landscape paintings have been lost in time. But today, we could still learn his painting style in the background of his narrative figure painting, Nymph of Luo River. And this is from the copy in Beijing Palace. There are different copies. So the copy is believed to be made in Song Dynasty, but it preserves a composition and certain painting style in Gu's time. I think you all know this painting actually is the visualized version of the famous prose poem Nymph of Luo River written by Cao Zhi, the prince poet. And the story goes that both Cao Zhi and his older brother Cao Pi fell in love with a beautiful woman named Zhen Fu. And it seems that Zhen Fu loved Cao Zhi, but the brother's father, Cao Cao, married her to Cao Pi, the older brother. Then what had happened? Anyone knows? And actually, what a pity. Zhen Fu was killed by Cao Pi when he became the emperor of Wei. Yes. And then it's said that the story goes that the next year, Cao Zhi once had a dream about his old lover. And in the dream, when he crossed the Luo River, he came across Zhen Fu, who had turned to be the nymph of Luo River. But since they were a mortal and an immortal, they could not be together. And the next day, when he woke from the dream, he wrote a magnificent prose poem, Nymph of Luo River, Luo Shenfu. So it's actually a tragic story. a tragic poem. And now I'm going to guide you into some detail of that painting with the extract of the original poem. 其形也，翩若惊鸿，宛若游龙，荣耀秋菊，华茂春松。仿佛兮若青云之蔽月，飘飘兮若流风之回雪。远而望之，皎若太阳升朝霞；破而察之，灼若芙蕖出绿波。The English version would be, her body soars lightly like a startled swan, gracefully like a dragon in flight, in splendor brighter than the autumn chrysanthemum, in bloom more flourishing than the pine in spring, dim as the moon mantled in filmy clouds, restless as snow whirled by the driving wind. Gaze far off from a distance, she sparkles like the sun rising from morning mists. Press closer to examine, she flames like the lotus flower topping the green wave. In the illustration, all the various images and figures the poet compared to the beauty of the nymph, the swan, the autumn chrysanthemum, the pine, the moon, the snow, and the sun are painted beside her. So the purpose of the painting, the landscape here, is to create a dreamy scene where a mortal and an immortal are in love. Here we can see how Gu Kaizhi could be regarded as such an important figure in the early history of Chinese painting. The painting may look like a very marvelous work to us. Do you think? Do you agree with that? And an art historian, Zhang Yangyuan, in Tang Dynasty, he gave out a certain comment on the painting. He said, 群峰之势，若细世希节. The peaks are hard and thickly arranged like mosaic patterns. 或水不容泛, the rivers show no running water. 或人大于山, 率皆复以数石映带其地, 列直之状，若深壁不止. So the people are painted larger than the mountains, and the blank space between the people and the mountains are filled with trees, which are arranged. Here, we could see these, like spread out fingers, hard and unnatural. Do you think it's a proper comment on the painting? Yes, again, it's proper. So it can show us that actually at that time, although Gu Kaizhi was such a master, his landscape painting was not matured. Now, after a long era in the Weijing periods, beside Gu Kaizhi, there were Zong Bing, who wrote 画山水序, Introduction to Landscape Painting, the earliest systematic discourse on the theory of landscape painting, and Wang Wei, the writer of 序画, Notes on Painting, and Xie He, 古画品录, the ranking of Asian paintings. In 古画品录, Xie He gives us a record of 27 painters and their paintings of that time. He also introduced the 6 principles on good paintings in 古画品录. Have you ever heard about the 6 principles, 六法, of the Chinese paintings? If no, I'll give you. That is what we have. 气韵生动, 古法用笔, 应物象形, 随类赋彩, 经营位置, 传遗摹写. But since the Chinese expression leave room for different interpretations, so Xie He's original idea is not that clear. Later in Tang Dynasty, Zhang Yangyuan, again, you've heard about that name before, Zhang Yangyuan provided his detailed understanding of the 6 principles in 历代名画记, as hence Zhang's understanding had been carried on as the unaltered principle for Chinese painting. It's not until the 20th century that another celebrated scholar, Qian Zhongshu, provided another understanding of the six principles. But comparatively, it's not as influential as Zhang Yanyuan's version. So the translation you have here actually is the understanding on Zhang Yanyuan's version of the six principles. Here, first one, 气韵生动, should be translated as spiritual resonance or vibration of vitality and life movement. There's another translation as vitality and rhythm. 古法用笔, born manner, or use of the brush. And 因物象形, confirm with objects to give likeness. 随类赋彩, coloring in accordance with the pictured matter. 经营位置, plan and design, place and position. Proper and correct composition is another way of translation. The last one, 传遗摹写, can be translated as imitating and learning from the works of predecessors. After all these aesthetic ideas, and after such a long-suffering era of disunion in the Sui dynasty, landscape painting gradually matured. Let's take Yu Chuntu Spring Outing as an example. It's attributed to Zhan Ziqian, a famous landscape painter in the Sui dynasty. Here, attributed to means it's a copy, probably copied by a painter in Northern Song period. But experts believe that it's a copy based on the original painting in Sui dynasty. So the composition and the style of the painting is mainly that of Sui. And some scholars suggested that this painting could prove that landscape painting had become an independent genre by then. This painting could also be a good example for us to understand the perspective in traditional Chinese painting. Actually, the word perspective is based on the science of perspectivity. Paintings following the rules of perspectivity arose in Italian Renaissance, as you can see in such painting as Masaccio, the Holy Trinity. So to view such a painting, the relationship between the viewer and the painting is fixed. It's like seeing the outside world from an open window. And I will give you more examples here. So you can see the fixed position here. And then even the landscapes. So you are facing which point? This one, yes? And then if we come back to the Chinese painting, where should we start? Can you find a fixed point? No. So this is actually one of the biggest differences between the Chinese painting and the Western landscape painting. And here, Chinese painting will not be the painting for you to view from a fixed position, but for you to enjoy, to invite you into the painting, to take a journey. You could be the one on the horse climbing up the mountain, or you could be the one on the boat enjoying the beautiful lake, or you could be the one standing at the side of the lake enjoying the flowers, the water, or maybe watching the other side of the lake. So this is the traditional Chinese way of perception of landscape, and the Chinese way to think about the relationship between the landscape, the nature, and ourselves. Such is the difference between the Western perspectives after the Renaissance and before the modernism, actually, and the visual perception of Chinese painting. And here, have you noticed that the detailed pictures I give you are actually brighter than the first spring outing paintings. Yes, the complete one. And we can see that the original one is comparatively darker and yellower, and the detailed pictures are brighter. What had happened? Actually, since the original painting was painted on silk, and we know that silk is so hard to preserve, and it's darkened with time. And this is the reason why many people will think the Chinese paintings look gloomy to me. And actually, the original paintings will not look like that. So I increased the brightness of the detailed areas of the picture. I think it might be closer to the original painting when it was first created. When the painting was made, it looked more magnificent and more brilliantly colored, actually. And this is our 青绿山水 or 青碧山水, the blue and green painting. And here you should first use a pen, a traditional Chinese pen, and to draw the outline. And then you will put the mineral pigments, very heavy mineral pigments like the green and the red, into these outlines. So such kind of paintings, the heavy color, the outline forms, and the decorative values. And sometimes, to add its magnificence, the painters might add silver or gold powders in these pigments. And in that way, it will be 金碧山水, green and gold painting. And I find a poem, Crossing the Green Grass Lake, fits to my understanding of this painting. 洞庭春六满，平湖锦帆张。远水桃花色，香流杜若香。雪去茅山尽，江流巫峡长。待天成迥碧，映日动浮光。On green grass lake, spring waves overflow. With outspread sails, my boat will go. The stream in peach blossoms is dyed. Queen's flowers sweeten riverside. East, the immortal cave is nigh. West, peak of goddess towers high. The sky purifies water green. The sun reflected stirs the floating sheen. So after such a poem, we'll remember this painting in the future. Yes? And now finally we have come to the Tang Dynasty, the most glorious era in the Chinese history that always comes into our dreams. So the painting in Tang Dynasty has incomparatively vigor, realism, and dignity. It's the art of a people in a world they know to be secure. And in its painting, figure painting reached its highest peak in Tang, while landscape was well developed in Tang Dynasty. The first systematic history of painting, 历代名画记, a history of famous paintings by Zhang Yanyuan, was also created in Tang Dynasty. It's a book of 10 rows discussing the development of Chinese painting and describes the life of 372 different painters. And it's not only the first systematic history of art in China, and 600 years earlier than the lives of most excellent painters, sculptors, and architects by the first Western art historian Vasari in Italy. It was published in 1550. Then in that book, Zhang Yanyuan told us a vignette that both Wu Daozi, a master in Tang, and Li Zhaodao, a landscape painter, were commanded to paint the beautiful scenery along the Jialing River in Sichuan on the Datong Palace wall. Li Zhaodao spent several months completing his work, while Wu Daozi finished his work within only one single day. And after that, the emperor of the time pronounced both had attained the height of excellence. So now we see that in Tang Dynasty, there were already two different painting styles. Xibi, one we called painstaking style, and Shubi, it's another quicker sketcher style. But both of them, if it's well worked, could reach the height of excellence. General Li Sixun is the father of Li Zhaodao, we have just mentioned, who was also a famous painter. And thus the father is sometimes called a Senior General Li and the son Junior General Li. The painting on the left here, Jiangfan Lou Ge Tu, pavilion at the riverside, attributed to Li Sixun, is a hanging scroll. And this is the pavilion you could see here, and these are the boats. If we compare this painting with Spring Outing, can you see something similar? So actually the composition of this painting looks quite similar with the left part of Spring Outing. Yes, can you see that? Yes. But if we compare the two, which painting reveals the better skill? Which one? Yes, the one on the left. And why? Actually, we can see from the trees. In Spring Outing, we can see these trees were put almost in one line. And then the composition is different. It's more complex. And now let's come to the poem. I think you are quite familiar with this poem by Li Bai. It's a part of the poem actually, and a poem he wrote on a pavilion. 抽刀断水，水更流；举杯消愁，愁更愁。人生在世不称意，明朝散发弄扁舟。Cut running water with a sword, it will fast flow. Drink wine to drown your sorrow, it will heavier grow. If we despair of all human affairs, let's roam in a boat with loosened hairs. This is what I choose for this painting. And then, after we see that, we can see another painting attributed to Li Zhaodao, the junior General Li, Ming Huang Xing Shu Tu. The Emperor Ming Huang's journey to Shu. I guess the name will give us a hint about the background. So it's about Tang Ming Huang, or Tang Xuanzong, as we know, the emperor of Tang Dynasty. Under him, the Kaiyuan era is usually viewed as one of the golden ages of Chinese history. But in the year 755, Jiedu Shi An Lushan, a non-Han military governor, started the Anshi rebellion at Fanyang. And then An Lushan and his army invaded the capital. And then after that, Tang Minghuang had to flee into Shu, and present-day Sichuan province. And on the way, a tragic thing happened. He had to have his beloved, most favorite imperial concubine Yang Yuhuan, or Yang Guifei, killed, because all his armies were so dissatisfied with her. They saw that it was because Tang Minghuang was so in love with her that they would lose their country. And in this painting, here is actually Tang Minghuang, who was in red. And after him, you could see someone look like the imperial concubines. So this painting, to some scholars, look more like a spring outing painting, just like the spring outing of 展子千. But anyhow, the Green Mountains here remind me of a very famous line taken from Bai Juyi's poem. We all know that it's a poem about the story between Tang Minghuang and Yang Yuhuan. And I have the line here, 蜀江水碧蜀山青，圣主朝朝暮暮晴。On western water blue and western mountains green, the monarch's heart was daily gnawed by sorrow keen. From 长恨歌, the everlasting regret. There's another painter we should talk about in this lecture. Wang Wei, he's the poet painter. He has another name as Poet Buddha, 师佛, because his poems and his paintings give us the very essence of nature and also of the essence of Zen or Chanzong. Wang Wei retired in Wangchuan Estate outside Chang'an, where he felt disappointed in time and in the court. He's best known for ink monochrome landscapes or the ink and wash landscapes, 水墨画, and especially the snowscapes. Wang Wei's reputation as a painter has risen higher and higher since the Song dynasty. In the Ming dynasty, the famous painter and art critic Dong Qichang regarded Wang Wei as the source of the southern school of painting, the literate painting. But in his own time, Wang Wei as a painter was not as important as Zhou Li or Wu Daozi. There are some paintings attributed to his name, like this one, Wangchuan Estate and the Snowbrook, but none have been authentic. And the last 5 paintings I'm showing today are from Dunhuang griddles, the various Buddhist cave sites most renowned in China. The Dunhuang art is not only an important source material for understanding ancient Chinese culture, but also an encyclopedia of ancient civilizations. Since most of the paintings in Tang Dynasty were painted on walls or silks, they had already disappeared or ruined. Then the paintings in Dunhuang and Mogao caves can give us some very precious evidence of the painting styles in Tang Dynasty. Like here, the young Sakyamuni cuts off his hair. It's a painting painted on a banner found from the cave. It tells the story of Buddha's life in a landscape setting. We can see here a few strokes here on the mountains and the rocks, which could be regarded as the start of Cunfa, the texture stroke matured in the Song dynasty. The other 4 paintings are often regarded as blue and green landscape painting in the Tang dynasty, and in the same time, we can find a kind of boneless, 墨骨 forms. Forms are made by ink and color washes rather than by outlines in most part of the paintings. Both of the 2 paintings here, 日想观, meditation on sunrise or sunset, were painted in the Tang dynasty from the cave 172 and 302. The meditation paintings remind me of the poem by Xie Lingyun, a famous landscape poet in Weijin period. 云日相辉映，空水共成仙。表灵物莫赏，运真谁为传？ The azure sky in water lost, the sun and white clouds beam with smile. When beauty is not enjoyed in time, what of hidden truths can we say? And then, the next painting, it's from the north wall of cave 323. Zhang Qian dispatched to the western region on a diplomatic mission from Mogao Griddle, was created in early Tang Dynasty. And Zhang Qian's story is very famous to us. This is when Zhang Qian was seen off by the Emperor Han Wudi. And here you could see this is Han Wudi, or Emperor Wu, and this is Zhang Qian. So in this painting, we could see how they were seeing off each other. And after that, Zhang Qian was going to start his journey through a very long route, which later is called as Silk Road. And then that journey, the first journey, would take him over 12 years. So this was a long goodbye. The last painting is the Paraps of the Magic City. It was in Mogao Cave 217 and was created in Hai Tang Dynasty. This was a copy of Changshu Hong, and I guess you could find the techniques in this painting is better than the painting of Zhang Qian's, which is created in early Tang Dynasty. But I would like to choose the painting of Zhang Qian as the painting to give you the last poem. 青山横北郭，白水绕东城。此地一为别，孤蓬万里征。浮云游子意，落日故人情。挥手自兹去，萧萧斑马鸣。Blue mountains bar the northern sky. White water girds the eastern tongue. Here is the place to say goodbye. You drift like lowly trestle dawn. With floating cloud you float away. Like parting clay, I'll part from you. You wave your hand and go your way. Your steed still niles. Adieu, adieu. And this is from Li Bai, a farewell to a friend. And finally, I would like to ask you some questions at the end of today's lecture. We have heard about the phrase attributed to very often today. If a painting is attributed to a painter, it means it's not painted by the master himself, but only a copy. So what do you think of the word copy or facsimile? How can we define the position of copies in Chinese art history? It's actually a very big question, a very important question in the same time. So this will be the question on the journey if we take this series of lectures as a long journey into the Chinese history of landscape painting. The next time, when we continue our lectures, I hope I could have your answers. So this is the end of today's lecture. Thank you very much.